Dead or Alive 5 is, as the title suggests, the fifth installment of the fighting game series Dead or Alive, made by Koei-Tecmo. The series is known for starring women with bouncy breasts and a pretty good movie adaptation made in 2007. This game came out on the previous generation of consoles, but I only played it a couple of years after it first came out, which is kind of a growing trend with me. So yes, Dead or Alive 5 features women, occasionally scantily clad, with bouncy boobies fighting each other in a 3D environment. But the more important question, is it a good fighting game? And the answer, you might be surprised to hear, is yes. Despite the notorious breast physics, the actual fighting in Dead or Alive is considerably more realistic, or perhaps more physical, than in other fighting games. Characters don't suddenly pull out weapons or shoot fireballs. There are special moves, but there's a much bigger emphasis on using your normal attacks in a smart way and linking them up to create combos. One thing that definitely took some time to get used to for me was that an alternate block or counter button and the throw button are part of the face buttons. After you get used to that, you'll notice that you can actually execute quite an impressive array of moves just with the D-pad and the 4 attack buttons. This, I think, is DOA's biggest virtue as a fighting game. It's really easy to just pick up, even if you've never played the series before. Now don't get me wrong, each character plays a little bit differently, and you're definitely going to have to adjust to a different way of controlling your character depending on who you play as. With fast characters like Ayane and Zhang Li, you can pounce on people and just rapid fire kicks and punches. But if you're playing as a heavy like Bayman or Tina, you'll want to focus more on throwing and grappling attacks, since they do the most damage to your opponents. So there is a lot of variety. You could question if the roster is very balanced, but I do feel that just as long as you can be bothered to learn the basic moves, you can play comfortably as almost any character. There are some like Mila that annoy me, because their blocks are pretty ineffective, but for the most part, most characters are fun to play. What's even more impressive about DOA 5 is that it contains so much unlockable stuff and game modes. Surprisingly, I was very much impressed with the story mode, which was really well done. I definitely preferred it over DOA 4, where the story and arcade mode were effectively the same thing. The arcade mode is pretty straightforward, and you don't get different character endings with it, but there's a lot of incentive to play it since it's the only mode that lets you unlock new costumes for the characters. And there are also Virtua Fighter characters doing cameos with sound clips straight from the 1990s. You can either choose a traditional one-on-one mode or do a tag team, and there's actually different advantages to these. The arcade mode doesn't let you switch characters between matches, and so you'll have to beat it as one character all the way through. Therefore, if you at least want to have a choice of two, you can pick the tag team. I personally am not a huge fan of tag team fighters, so the traditional arcade mode would be more to my liking. Then again, you have to beat 8 fights to clear the one-on-one mode, but you only need to beat 5 in the tag team, and to win one fight, you only have to beat both opponents. So effectively, unlocking things is a bit faster and easier in the tag team mode. The graphics are really beautiful and a real step up from the previous installment. Not that DOA 4 looked bad, but especially little details like the character's hair looks a lot better in this installment. Plus the water effects and the lush detail in most areas. The cutscenes are hilarious and really well made, and I also dig the voice acting. The soundtrack isn't anything special, although all the tunes are appropriate. Still, it would be nice if fighting game composers could actually come up with really memorable background themes like in old school fighting games. Maybe I'm just spoiled, but I really do like the soundtracks of games like Street Fighter and Killer Instinct, and I'm always a little disappointed when other fighting games don't really aspire to same kind of quality. Now, obviously the main audience for this game is guys, but I would really hope that people wouldn't overlook DOA 5 just because it has a clearly boyish appeal about it. Actually, I think it's really cool that we have a fighting game series where most of the main characters are women, and also of a very broad range of women as well. There might be some disproportionate fan service, but that doesn't change the fact that DOA 5 is actually a really well made and a really fun fighting game experience. Also, I don't see that many true 3D fighters these days, with the genre backtracking to 2.5D most of the time, and while there's nothing wrong with that, I actually do think it's cool to see characters fight in an actual 3D ring for once. So if you want a fun fighting game to play with friends, to experience the over-the-top story, or just because you like bouncy boobies, I highly recommend this game. I'm TheHande, and see you on the next one.